Report story. Coco. Eri called out running towards the brunette. Jump. Why good morning Eri. It's good to see you. How's my little caramel apple doing? Ochako called out, swinging Eri around in her arms. Izuku smiled at the sight, walking up towards the two. Ochako really would make such a good mother. How was your day alone with Bakugo? Ochako asked happily, though there was a bit of stern that Izuku had managed to catch in her voice. It was great. He made me an egg omelette. Oh, and we watched TV. Baku-chan likes to read a lot though. He never lets me read what he's reading though. He said it's not for runts. Eri said, crossing her arms and puffing out her cheeks. Ochako sighed. That's not as bad as she thought. In actuality, it sounded quite nice. Ochako nodded defeatedly as she placed Eri back on the ground. So darling, why did you bring Eri all the way out here again? I know you want her to meet Hima, but you said it would help with her training. Ochako said, questioningly. Izuku grinned. Oi, Hima, you're awake aren't you? Izuku called. Suddenly, with an animated flash, the familiar illusion of a whitish blonde girl appeared in front of them. Ochako and Izuku chuckled to themselves. Hima was getting more creative after spending time on Izuku's phone learning. She stretched and looked around at the three of them. Did she just pretend to stretch? Ochako and Izuku thought to themselves. Good morning, Hima said cheerily. Izuku smiled. Ever since Hima had gotten food in her system, her speech had greatly improved from her slow sentences. Ah, it's a girl, Eri said in happy surprise. Are you Eri-chan? Izuku and Ochako have spoken a lot about you, Hima said to Eri. However, Eri was more fascinated with Hima just appearing. How did you just appear? How are you floating? What's your name? Eri asked all at once. Izuku laughed. One at a time, Eri. Izuku said. However, Hima shook her head. I can keep up now. Quirk control and basic thinking is really easy when you have mind powers, Hima said cheerfully, floating about. Izuku couldn't help but frown at the sound of that. However, catching Ochako's eye, he put the thought out of his mind. I'm an illusionary Chan, meaning I can take any shape I want. I just chose to look like a healthier version of myself until I get better. My name is Hima. Hima said with a smile. Can you be a fairy? Eri asked excitedly. Hima gave her a confused look. A fairy. Hima looked over at Izuku. Izuku pointed to his mind and imagined a fairy. Hima, who read his mind, smiled. Yes, I can be a fairy. Hima's body suddenly shrank, little wings popping out of her back. Wow, Eri said, now dancing with the fairy version of Hima. Izuku laughed. Like mother, like daughter, I suppose. Izuku laughed, remembering when Ochako thought Hima was a fairy. Hey, how was I supposed to know that little ball of light was a person with mind powers? Ochako pouted, puffing her cheeks. Izuku wrapped his arms behind Ochako and kissed her on the cheek. Yeah, I know. Izuku smiled. Ochako exhaled. This was cheating. Anyway, Izuku said, releasing Ochako, who disapproved of the relinquishing affection. Hima, I have a question for you, Izuku said, catching Hima's attention. The now little fairy stopped flying around Eri and was now focusing on Izuku. Promoted stories. You'll also like Cruelty X 1.2M 40.3K. A very hostile girl whom despised everyone and everyone despised her. Izuku Midoriya, a very sweet boy who was popular with his classmates, oddly developed. The Life of 17.3K486 Izuku. Midoriya wanted to be a hero his whole life and was bullied for it since he was quirkless. Izuku Midoriya was told that he would never get a quirk by his doctor. Golden, Hispanic, Latina. Femme. Reader. Ex-Izuku, heiress to the richest company in the world. The government of Japan has good relationships with your grandfather. It was the duty of the government to save. Dream on, B.K. Downwards arrow tip rightwards in which a jealous bachelor signs a deal with the devil in order to win over the heart of his first love. Katsuki Bakugo has loved the PR. I hate and love you. 259K 4.6 con. IzuOcha fanfiction where Deku and Uraraka had a fight in kindergarten which led to something worse. But maybe they can be friends or perhaps more. Non-quirk rated. Captured by Love. BNHA Villain Redemption a 136K 2.9K Izuku. Midoriya has never felt more confused. Being a villain has taught him to never get attached to anyone, because they'll either end up betraying you, or you'll be. Villain Deku 11.5K 271 words. 23,820 Izuku was just 14 when he met All Might and asked if he can be a hero, but All Might crushes his dreams and left him on a rooftop. What All Might didn't. Your reality quirk. It's basically an enhancement of the previous Overseer quirk. Your quirk allows you to adjust reality and see into other people's reality, like mind reading and illusions. But you still have the benefits of the previous quirk, right? Being able to see everything. That's why you could see inside One for All into the Vestige realm, right? Izuku asked. Hima nodded. Yes, I can see things most wouldn't. The inside of minds, the inside of quirks and how the quirk operates. I can basically create a vision of what you see, or what you should be seeing. I can also use that to my advantage and put myself, illusion-wise, into that realm. I would for the most part be giving you a visual representation of what is happening. Izuku nodded. That's great for Eri. Maybe we can show her the visual representation of her quirk. As for me though, what if we combined the power of Overseer and your reality quirk? Hima gave Izuku a confused look. In theory it's possible. I've never had a reason to try something like that though. Izuku, what are you trying to do? Ochako asked nervously. Izuku was thinking really deep into this. One for All has been silent on me ever since Nana Shimura took over. I haven't been able to get into the Vestige realm. If I can get Hima and I a representation of the One for All to understand the way it functions, I might be able to force my way in using Hima's reality quirk. That sounds super risky, Ochako said. That's definitely a plan you would come up with though. Do you really think One for All can be manipulated so easily? I mean, it's a pretty legendary quirk with a full conscious right. I don't really have another choice. One for All has been testing me, the previous users have been testing me, you said it yourself. Shoot. Maybe even One for All is guiding me, it's connected to All for One in some way. So maybe it has a sense of what's going on and where to lead me. Maybe Hima is the reason it's been silent. Maybe it wants me to use Hima as the key to understanding it. Izuku looked down at his scarred hand. He clenched his fist. I have to try. Ochako folded her arms and stared at Izuku. She then sighed. That would seem just a bit too convenient. One for All just knows that Hima is a part of whatever plan the League of Villains have. That would be something. But after being with you for months on end, nothing is impossible, Ochako said, defeatedly. Ochako couldn't help but feel like Izuku was onto something though. The message of the school's probation still rang in her head. Maybe One for All was guiding Izuku. Hima may just have something to do with this. Ochako shook her head. If that was the case, then more information would come to them soon enough. What do you say, Hima? You with us? Izuku asked. You already know about One for All with your mind powers, so want to be part of Team One for All? Hima smiled gleefully. Absolutely. And don't worry, my lips are sealed. Secret is safe with me. The fairy said, making a zipping gesture with her hand and lips. Wait just a second, Eri called. I wanna be part of Team One for All. What's One for All? I'll tell you when you're a bit older, alright. Izuku said, crouching down to Eri's level. For now, it's time for us to do some quirk training. You ready? Eri sat for a second, seemingly disappointed, however she chose to trust Izuku. She nodded in agreement to Izuku's decision. Great, let's see. Okay, we're gonna go over there. Izuku said, pointing to a small clearing in the middle of the trees. Izuku and Eri walked over, the little fairy following after them. Ochako smiled, watching the three go off into the pink-leaved forest before turning her attention back to her flip phone. Ochako went and checked her messages. She hadn't been in much contact with the rest of Class 1A under Aizawa's instruction, however this was important. What were they supposed to be doing if school was on probation? Were they still being funded? Could they stay here in the cabin? Why did the school shut down? Ochako had messaged the girls' group chat, and messaged Mina privately. No reply came her way. Were they actively ignoring her? As much as the thought kinda hurt Ochako, she knew if they were, it was under Aizawa's instruction once again. Still hurt though. Worst come to serve, they could stay with her parents. Except for Bakugo. Maybe her parents could get them a place to stay in the meantime. They said they were making a bunch of money now that they were building that hospital for that doctor. Izuku. Ochako called out before Izuku got situated. Throw me your phone. Izuku reached into his pocket and tossed his phone in the air, Ochako catching it with ease. While they trained, Ochako was going to do a little investigating in the news to see what was happening back at the school. If anyone knew anything, it was that reporter who visited the school that day. What was his name? Ochako thought for a second. Right, Tokuda, Taneo. He would definitely have his nose at very least in the state of affairs with Ua, if not more. Though, there was also something else wanted to research. Something about Hima had thrown Ochako off. Her speech. It was oddly intelligent, as if she had done experimenting before. Where would she have learned to theorize and talk like that if she had been alone out here for so long by herself? She wasn't picking stuff like that up watching videos on Izuku's phone. Unless she wasn't by herself. Who was she picking this up from? And if she was subconsciously picking this up, who was she picking it up from? And why couldn't she remember? While Ochako did her own research, Izuku had gotten Eri situated on the ground. Eri sat criss-crossed applesauce on the ground. All right, Hima, I want you to get creative here. Izuku said, I want you to make an illusion that represents Eri's quirk. If possible, to make it adjust according to how much power Eri is using. Hema, still in her fairy form, flew around Eri, thinking about what to do before snapping her fingers. Suddenly, a little ball of yellow energy, mimicking Eri's horn energy, appeared in front of Eri. Eri looked amazed. This is Eri now, not using her quirk, so her power is just sitting. Hema said, when she uses her quirk, it'll grow. Perfect. Alright Eri, practice time. Try and keep the ball as small as possible, while also having your quirk activated. Now you can actually see something. That may help you understand. If it gets too big, try and control it if you're doing it right. The energy ball should get smaller. Right. Izuku asked Hema. Hema nodded. Yes. Izuku smiled. Illusions were awesome. Eri sat in the grass, her horn growing, yellow energy now wrapped around her. The tiny ball of energy in front of her grew, but not by much. Izuku inwardly cheered. She had her quirk activated, but nothing around her changed. She was controlling it. Keep it there, Eri. You're doing great, Izuku said. Izuku now turned his attention to Hema. All right, Hema, you'll warn her if it gets bad, right? Hema nodded. Great. Now for the hard part. We need to get into one for all. Bakugo walked through the forest, his hands in his pockets. He looked back towards the cabin sitting atop of the mountain. That nerd and round face should have returned by now. Meaning the runt was safe. He looked around the area. Oi oi, I know you're there. You thought the future number one hero wouldn't notice you. Bakugo called out. A person walked out from behind some trees. Surprised you even noticed us. Hey, Yosuke, come on out. We've been caught red-handed. Asagiri said, mockingly raising her hands. Yosuke walked out, his hands in his pockets. The woman wore a long white doctor's coat, while Yosuke wore a black leather jacket and blue jeans. The woman's hair was a deep red that fell to her waist, circular glasses with technical enhancements added to them, with slip-on shoes. The man's hair was a deep brown, slightly messy, shoulder-length hair, as if he forgot to take care of it. So you're the boy that lives in the cabin. That's a new house. Haven't seen that in the years I've been researching here. The woman said, however Bakugo brushed off her comment. I'm gonna ask this nice and easy. You two villains. Bakugo asked. The woman put a finger to her chin, apparently in contemplation. Era, what a upfront man we have here. I like that. Let's say I'm on the side of liberation. The woman said. Well, you didn't say you weren't a villain. Bakugo said. Suddenly, with intense speed, Bakugo exploded his way towards the two. However, the man's reaction time was perfect, almost inhuman. The man dodged Bakugo's now outstretched arm, aiming for an explosion, grabbing Bakugo by the jaw and slamming Bakugo to the ground, knocking Bakugo out instantly. Wait, don't kill him, that wouldn't be very nice. I like him. Use your quirk to erase this from his memory. Asagiri said. Yosuke sighed. You know it's hard for me to determine what to erase. I can only erase a certain amount of time. I dunno what is being erased in those. Just do the last few hours. Asagiri said. The man suddenly touched Bakugo's forehead, a silvery light warping around his hand. Not gonna lie, this kid is pretty freaking amazing. If you hadn't used your amplification quirk to enhance my body, I would have been done for. His natural reaction time is stupid fast. He said, "You would have been. That boy I believe is a student of UA. Grab him. We're going into that cabin. I think we might learn some valuable information there. If there's one student here, then there's sure to be more. Maybe even him." Kenny boy here. Team 1 for all has been established. I guess we have multiple teams. Now we have Team 1 for all, Team Liberation, and Team Momo. The teams, all revolving around the same issues. How will this play out? Kenlair, where stories live. Discover now.